Welcome back to Past Paradise, where we explore Hollywood celebrities' intriguing lifestyles. Today, we examine the mysterious life of cinematic siren Angie Dickinson, whose appeal crossed decades. Along with her appearances in Rio Bravo and Policewoman, Dickinson was charming off-screen. In a touching confession, she said Frank Sinatra was her lifelong love, adding to their love story. Join us as we unearth details about this Hollywood mystery, from her iconic performances to her complex personal life, illuminating her legacy. Prepare for an exciting tour of Angie Dickinson's glamorous and secretive world. Be a damsel, but think like a man. Angie was a farm girl before her dazzling life on the big screen, far from the sparkle and glamour of Hollywood. She was the second of 4 daughters born in North Dakota. Her first goal was to become a writer from the small-town background of her father's newspaper printer. That would have been one of the pastimes that young Angie engaged in during the Great Depression. She eventually liked the entertainment sector after spending time at the movie theater. Dickinson made her cinematic debut in the Colgate Comedy Hour. She then starred in Ocean's 11 as Frank Sinatra's spouse. She was a passionate woman too, and she desired more than the label of homemaker. Like Marlene Dietrich, the legendary actor aspired to be as adaptable as men, while straddling an incredible number. Father had messy habits. Growing up with the outbreak of World War I was difficult enough for little Angeline Dickinson. Her early years were also marred by her father's drinking. However, the gifted actress defended herself with unwavering will, so she would never become stuck like her old dad, refusing to give in to family pressure. Angeline's father's dreams of becoming a veterinarian or saxophonist were dashed by his drinking when he returned from the war to care for his mother. He thus discovered that he was trapped somewhere he'd never before imagined. Angie loved her wonderful dad, but something about his inebriation clouded her early years. The beautifully talented wisecracker. To be clear, Angeline Dickinson is more than simply a lovely woman. She's a gifted performer who completed her business course, authored a winning essay for the annual Bill of Rights, and graduated from high school before her classmates. The gun-the-man-down actress could pursue a career in business or writing if she'd ever chosen to give up acting. This was her original plan before she shot to fame and won the Golden Globe for New Star of the Year. Angeline seems to be a soldier who never quits, wanting to achieve more despite her many accomplishments. Her determined steps never wavered, even if her acting career was sometimes dubious. The attractive Mr. Dickinson. Early in life, romance may be wonderful, particularly when it involves a tall, attractive football player with an aptitude for technology. Gene Dickinson was a man whom Angeline Dickinson formerly dated and eventually married. Yes, this person encouraged the actress to change her last name from Brown to the one she now goes by. The actress went to school and met Gene, her future husband, before she rose to fame in Hollywood. After only 10 months of dating, the charming couple was married in 1952. Their blissful 8-year marriage came to an untimely end in 1960. But despite everything, they stayed friends and even continued to use the same last name, at least when it came to the screen. Moment of runner-up captured Tinseltown. Despite her best efforts, Angeline Dickinson could not win the 1953 Miss America title and finished in second place. Surprisingly, her time as runner-up offered her a first-shot opportunity for fame. Before she knew it, she was being courted by a casting agent to play a showgirl in Jimmy Durante show. It wasn't too horrible not to take the first place with how things worked out. When Angeline finally made her cinematic debut, she met Frank Sinatra and attracted the attention of a television producer who supported her acting career. Years later, the former beauty queen became a comedy show guest star and even landed a position with the My Way singer. Her official TV acting debut. Angie Dickinson made her acting debut on television around the end of 1954. She had 3 appearances on Death Valley Days, which opened a new avenue for her acting career. After showcasing her abilities, Angie was cast in further TV series, including It's a Great Life for 2 episodes and Matinee Theater for 8. The gorgeous thespian also appeared in small parts in General Electric Theater, Grey Ghost, and City Detective. In addition, Angie had an uncredited part in the movie Lucky Me that same year. She declined to tint her hair a deep blonde, as was customary in that decade to stand out. On becoming a famous actress. Acting next to their childhood heroes is still a fantasy for many budding performers, but Angie made it happen. The American actress eventually secured a prominent part in the film Rio Bravo, where she coexisted with notable figures such as Ricky Nelson, Walter Brennan, and Dean Martin after appearances in a few small-scale projects. She also got to perform with John Wayne, her boyhood hero. After that, Angie became one of the decade's most sought-after icons. She, however, refused to let it stop her in a field where men predominate and showed her acting prowess. On meeting Frank Sinatra. Angie Dickinson and Frank Sinatra became close friends after meeting on the Jimmy Durante Show. The singer's contacts helped her get a part in the then-popular movie Ocean's 11. Angie portrayed Frank's character's estranged wife in the film. Despite having only 2 scenes together, they connected on film. Angie had established herself as the Rat Pack gal pal by then, which meant that she was the only woman they'd let into the room and sometimes tell them a dirty tale and beat them at poker. Howard sold her contract. Despite its challenges, Dickinson's breakout performance in Rio Bravo by Howard Hawks was fantastic. Her portrayal of a seductive saloon girl in the Western drama solidified her reputation as a changing sex symbol and solidified her position in the movie industry. If Howard hadn't secretly sold her contract to Warner Brothers, she would have kept abusing this area. Still, Dickinson was about to embark on even more remarkable adventures. She was better positioned for movie parts due to this contract change, which launched her into the lucrative film career we're all familiar with. It wasn't all rosy. Warner Brothers was a major production company then, so any actress would have been ecstatic to secure a deal there. Still, it was a formidable task since many other actresses, like her, such as Dorothy Provine and Connie Stevens, also signed Warner Brothers contracts. Since it came out that one had to be remarkable to stand out, Dickinson was under pressure to outperform the other actresses in her group. Fortunately, despite the difficulties, she established a reputation for herself. An ineffective marriage. Angie Dickinson never had to fight to get big roles as an actress after getting her first break in the 1956 movie Gun the Man Down. Sadly, after her first divorce from Gene Dickinson in 1960, her marital life has not fared as well as her profession. She went on to marry renowned musician Burt Bacharach in 1965, but the couple only lasted 15 years before divorcing in 1981. She maintained connections with several well-known people, including Frank Sinatra, but none developed into a sustained, serious partnership. Fame poisoned the marriage. Angie and her husband's marriage ended badly when Angie's desire for prestige took precedence over their relationship. After Bacharach's first Academy Award-winning song, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, became popular, his perspective of the policewoman star shifted. Somehow, the fact that the nation knew his songs and celebrated his success made him less appreciative of his wife. According to Vanity Fair, Angie reportedly said that she ought to have stayed in a love connection with the composer rather than getting married. Almost wed Frank Sinatra. If you ask Angie Dickinson who her closest personal friend is, she would choose singer Frank Sinatra. It's said that the singer and actress fell in love when they first met in the 1950s. According to Vanity Fair, the actress might have married him following an on-again, off-again relationship spanning over 10 years. Angie recognized and accepted Frank's obvious statement that he didn't want to marry an actress. Nevertheless, the two remained close friends and had a great deal of regard for one another. Romantically linked with the former president. The guy who garnered the most attention among the several men who entered Dickinson's life was John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States. The press carried rumors about their romance for many years. Still, the actress rejected it repeatedly and avoided talking about it. It's interesting to note that in 1960, at a party hosted by the politician's sister before the Democratic Convention, Frank Sinatra introduced her to John. Angie was then seen supporting the Democrats throughout the presidential race, ultimately spreading rumors about their purported romance. Almost lost her first child. Angie Dickinson welcomed Leah Nikki, her only child, into her family a year after she wed Bacharach. Regretfully, the infant had a difficult beginning since she was born 3 months ahead of schedule and had many health issues. At birth, she weighed a mere pound and 10 ounces, and her chances of survival were very slim. Nikki defied all odds after 2 weeks in the incubator and amazingly emerged unscathed. Dickinson turned down many offers of work for years to care for her daughter, while her ex-husband, Bacharach, wrote a song called Nikki, which he dedicated to his little princess. They were not allowed contact with Nikki. When Dickinson and Bacharach saw their daughter Nikki in the incubator, they were not permitted to touch her, which put them in a difficult situation. In the 1960s, medical professionals frowned upon skin-to-skin contact with newborns. The fact that Dickinson could see her kid but not hold her devastated her deeply. Nikki could leave the hospital after 3 months, which was fortunate for them. She seemed normal to her parents, but just before becoming 1 year old, the child started exhibiting some concerning symptoms that caused tension in their marriage. Several health problems start. Nikki had several obstacles regarding her health, but she was conquering them all. However, Dickinson and Bacharach saw that something was wrong, and strabismus was quickly identified as the child's condition. Additionally, she did not start speaking until the age of 3. Nevertheless, everything was not lost since she could play the piano well and even compose her songs by the time she was 4. Despite her health issues, Nikki was highly active in gymnastics, ballet, and swimming. The girl had innate brilliance and was unaffected by sickness. Nikki's health strains her parents' marriage. Dickinson thought her daughter Nikki was quite well, but Nikki was constantly in and out of the hospital. Her parents objected to the doctor's incorrect diagnosis of autism, citing her high-functioning kid status. Nikki had Asperger's syndrome, a less common and more difficult to diagnose condition. Dickinson was devastated to learn that Bacharach was reported to have had many relationships during this trying period. It was not Nikki's fault, but it didn't make things any easier. For the sake of her daughter, who would otherwise grow up feeling depressed, her mother tried her hardest to remain in the marriage. She made a deal with a U.S. president. One of the many fascinating things to know about Ronald Reagan is that he was an aspiring actor before beginning his political career. Luckily, Dickinson got to see him in what turned out to be his last performance in a play. Although none of them anticipated that Reagan would go on to become president, it was a neat addition to the actress's resume when it did happen. The future president had to smack Dickinson across the face while portraying the antagonist of the film. Ronald Reagan continued apologizing for the incident for years, even though it was required of him by contract. Performed alongside the legendary Marlon Brando. One of the main things Dickinson recalls about Marlon Brando is that he enjoyed making people uncomfortable. Nevertheless, he made her feel welcome to the team when she accepted a supporting part in a film where he was the lead actor. As she recalls, he seemed much more friendly than she had anticipated when they would sit in his trailer and speak. Dickinson was grateful for the lesser part with Brando, even though she had previously accepted starring in female roles since it allowed her to collaborate with a major player in the business. Angie Dickinson's most memorable performance. Angie became a household name with many popular roles in films. However, Point Blank is the movie that's regarded as her best. The film, directed by John Boorman and starring Lee Marvin, veers between the drama and crime genres. It was one of her favorite scenes when she had to battle Lee in the movie. Angie thrashes his hands on his chest for a long while until he passes out on the ground. Funny enough, the director said that Dickinson may be exacting revenge for a sequence in The Killers when Marvin threw her out of a window while she was upside down. Angie's legs were insured for $1 million. You could conclude that Dickinson's skill is her most valued asset. You wouldn't be incorrect. But Angie also discovered her legs were a fantastic advantage. It said that Universal Pictures obtained $1 million insurance policy for them. Her legs were so attractive that they were insured for a substantial sum. Angie's legs became even more well-known when she became the first actress in an American entertainment business to appear on film wearing a miniskirt. She was so well-liked during her performance that in 1962 she was given a Golden Garter Award. Her career struggled for a while. Dickinson had difficulty following her roles in some of her most well-known movies of the time. She continued getting cast in movies, but her new parts were less important than she would have liked. Her roles in westerns like Young Billy Young and Sam Whiskey reflect that period in her life. She also appeared in Big Bad Mama, reminiscent of Bonnie and Clyde, among other lesser-known roles in her career, such as one in which she co-starred with Tom Skerritt and William Shatner. It wasn't one of her greatest, but it showed the audience how beautiful she could still be. She stayed in the marriage for her daughter. Before their divorce in 1976, Dickinson and Bachrach were wed for around 16 years. As is often the case, the relationship began with a lot of love and fantasy-like sentiments, but as time passed, it became less and less meaningful until it was almost finished. But Angie attempted to prolong it for the sake of her daughter, Nikki. Dickinson believed that while the divorce was a wonderful relief, she and Bachrach should have never taken their relationship seriously and continued to communicate so their daughter wouldn't have to lose both of her parents. Marriage was wonderful for the first week, and then good for about 10 or 11 years, the woman was subsequently reported as saying. Tragedy strikes. Angie tragically had to experience the loss of her kid via suicide despite her best efforts to provide for her daughter. Nikki, who was given an Asperger's syndrome diagnosis, endured years of abuse that left her psychologically and physically worn out. Nikki took her own life in 2007 at the age of 40, despite her mother's greatest efforts to provide her with the finest upbringing possible. Devastated, Angie said that her dear daughter found the world too harsh. Bert is still haunted by Nikki's death. Bert spoke on how difficult it is to think back on his daughter's death years later. He didn't have to go deeply into his most trying period of life until he started writing his book. He further disclosed that Nikki had left him a letter after the corpse was found by the police. Bert's never read it. However, in an interview, Bachrach's voice trembled as he remarked, "I know exactly what's in the note. I never read the note. I never will. There's no need to read it. I already know what she said." Eventually, the better times came. Dickinson's cinematic career had a downturn, but in 1974 she made a cameo appearance on Police Story, which catapulted her back into the spotlight. The crowd responded so well to it that she was granted the opportunity to perform her performance, Police Woman. Being the first drama series with a female lead, it became well-liked and prosperous. She had some alleviation in her personal life due to this beneficial shift in her profession. After all, Bachrach was riding a downward slope while Policewoman was heading upward, ultimately leading to her divorce. Angie's success influenced a generation of young women. President Gerald Ford opted to postpone a news conference rather than miss an episode of Policewoman, which aired from 1974 to 1978 and was so beloved by viewers. Angie played a detective in the show who often went undercover to take down prominent crooks and criminal organizations. Dickinson acknowledged that her persona's bold and independent spirit was why she admired it. In addition to the actress's 3 Emmy nominations for the program, she inadvertently encouraged a young generation of women to seek careers in police enforcement. Becoming an on-screen hero. Even though Angie Dickinson had been in several films and television shows before Policewoman, the program's popularity had a lasting effect on her life. She said that while people had thought of her as a celebrity for a long time, this program let her fully embrace it and made her feel like one. The influence that Policewoman had on the nation's youth may be one factor contributing to this sentiment. There was a 4% rise in women joining the police service, and more started to work actively in the film business. She felt unique because others perceived her as an on-screen hero, which went beyond her wealth and celebrity. Dressed to Kill, Murder. Angie Dickinson played the lead role in Dressed to Kill, a 1980 criminal case that differed greatly from Policewoman. In the first, Angie was a mentally ill, unstable patient who was killed in the pursuit of a sensational fulfillment. In the latter, she was searching for suspects and turning them over to the police. Director Brian De Palma concluded that the words he had written for her were superfluous, and for the whole 20 minutes she was in the film, there was nothing but quiet. Angie's part was made more memorable by this afterthought. intimacy, passion, and a reverse striptease. There were several sensuous passages in Dress to Kill, but one stood out. Angie woke up alone on the bed after spending a romantic night with a stranger she met at the museum. She immediately sent the strange guy a love message expressing her sincere gratitude for their wonderful evening together. The atmosphere descended into emotion when Dickinson dressed up as a reverse striptease. She made eye contact with the camera so that viewers could see the intense, passionate expression of a raging lover. The filmmaker hoped to capture the audience's interest and immerse them in the intense emotion of the scene by doing this. Bickerings behind the scenes. Not every movie allows viewers to see what's going on behind the scenes. So many fans were taken aback when they learned about the argument during Dress to Kill's production. Angie and Nancy Allen, the film's co-star and the director's wife, were deeply divisive and prone to outbursts. Nancy allegedly hated Angie only for asking the director's wife to quit smoking in a small area. Although Nancy often disliked Dickinson, Brian was adamant that their arguments shouldn't impact the film he was making. And they didn't. A lot of people enjoyed the movie after it got popular. We find it hard to believe someone could be angry with this beauty. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon